Good morning, happy Saturday. I'm making this video because today I'm going to an art bookstore for the first time, which feels weird because I feel like I should have been to an art bookstore before as an artist, as an art teacher, but I tend to just go to like regular bookstores and then go to the art section. Like places like Waterstones or if I'm in America, like Barnes and Noble or The Strand in New York. So there's lots of big bookstores that have huge selections of art books. So yeah, today I thought, let me just go to this specific store that's just for art books. And it's by Tate Modern, which if you're in London, you know it's like right on the river. But if you're not in London, that is like a really huge contemporary art museum that was built in the year 2000. It's really, really popular. It's really big. And right next to it is the art bookstore. And yeah, they're supposed to have like rare art, like monographs, which are like books that are dedicated to a single artist that show all the work they made in their career. But there's also supposed to be more contemporary art books, which is what I'm after. The reason I'm going is A, because I'm addicted to buying art books, but B, because I'm really trying to work on an essay or a collection of essays that has been like brewing in my mind for the past, I would say, 3 or 4 years. I've just been really wanting to write this essay collection slash book. And I was really fortunate last month to go to a writing retreat that was hosted by the university that I teach at. So it was a writing retreat for Black staff, only 2 days, but we all got to go and bring whatever we wanted to work on, whether it be like a book or an essay or a personal poem collection. There was a huge range of different projects people were working on. So I spent 2 days there, 2 8-hour days of just with my laptop, just writing and researching and planning. So I got a lot of work done in those 2 days, and I basically came up with an outline for the essay I want to write, and I also created a big sort of list or spreadsheet of books and articles and texts that I wanted to read or at least look at to help me prepare and research before I actually sit down and like finish the essay. But I did start a little bit of it. I think I wrote maybe like 5 or 6 pages, but they're kind of all over the place. They're all over the place, and I think it's because I'm a bit rusty when it comes to writing. I'm sure others might relate. You know, it's you get used to writing for other people. You get used to writing essays for school or dissertations. In my case, as a, art lecturer, I write lots of letters of recommendation. So I'm always writing for someone else, or I'm writing like an evaluation for a student, but I'm never writing for myself. So it's almost like a bit of a learning curve. I have to sort of learn how to write again, how to find my own voice, how to find my own way that I like to use language. So going to this bookstore, I'm hoping to pick back up on the research aspect of the writing of the essay. And then once I can do or have done the research that I want to do, I can dive more confidently back into the actual essay. Because right now I feel like I'm just sort of stabbing at the dark, just typing out words, but obviously I want to have a really solid ground in terms of research for the essay. And I don't really want to talk about what it's about quite yet, even though it probably would be helpful to like talk things out. Maybe I'll make another video to talk about that because it is quite convoluted, but the gist of it is, and what my research is gonna consist of is thinking about the female body in contemporary art and in art history, tying that into mannequins somehow. I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but I plan to do that. And also thinking about Black women's relationship to beauty standards, the culture that sort of affects all women, where we're told to be pretty, look beautiful, have a beautiful exterior, but what about inside? So yeah, it's gonna be a bit conceptual. It's gonna be touching on politics, art history, psychology, aesthetics, yeah, visual studies as well, visual culture studies. So that's why I'm kind of struggling, and that's why I want to go and do this research today and like pick out some books that might sort of help me figure out what I want to do. But anyway, honestly, I'm gonna have to put the name of the bookstore like in text on top of the video because I already forgot what it's called. It's like some guy's name. And I've walked by it before, and I almost went in when I walked by, but I was like really trying not to spend any money, and I know myself. I was like, if I step foot in this store, I'm gonna spend like £100. So let me just walk on by. But today, I need to give myself a budget, and maybe instead of a budget, I'll just say like I can get 2 books, because I already have a lot of art books and a lot of books that I still haven't read. So I just want to find 2 books that deal with the subject of either the body or the notion of the object or objectification. So hopefully I can find something that's more like art theory related. But before I go, because I'm gonna go soon and I'll come back and I'll tell you what I got, my book haul, hopefully it's not too many books, and what the experience of the store was like. But before I go, I just thought it would be helpful for me, and maybe if you're interested, like talking about the types of art books I do like, because I think I'm very specific in what I sort of gravitate towards. And hopefully they have books similar to these at the art book shop. So I have 4 books in front of me. I feel like Tyra Banks I have 4 cards in front of me, but and there's 2 more, but they're all very different art books, but they all sort of sum up what I love in an art book and what I hope to find later on today. So let me just start with this one since it's in my hand. One thing about me, I love an exhibition publication. Like, the way I have to fight every cell in my body when I leave an exhibition to not buy the book about the exhibition. Like, usually I give in. Even if I don't even really like the show, there's something about just like wanting to like hold it near and dear and just have a memory of it. Because another thing I do is I always collect and keep in a box any sort of like exhibition card or like the guide they give you or the poster or the pamphlet, whatever. I collect those. So I love these, and this is one of my favorites. This is from the Harlem Renaissance and Transatlantic Modernism show at not Tate, at the MoMA. No, not MoMA. At the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. So I went to this in April, and I should do a whole nother video for that because it was truly transformative and inspiring, and talked about the relationship between European modernism and artists in the Harlem Renaissance, like Jacob Lawrence. And I love this book because it has all the images of the work, but it also has, information about what it was like in Harlem at the time, and the cultural atmosphere, the historical atmosphere. And I just really, really connected to this show because my family, I'm originally from Milwaukee, but my family is from the South. We're from Arkansas, Texas. So we had that Great Migration movement, or Great Migration story of going from the American South to going to the Midwest. So we didn't go to New York, but we went to the Midwest, like a lot of other Black people that went to Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee. So yeah, I just really connected to this show, and I love being able to like hold it with me for the rest of my life, like having this evidence of the book and the ability to sort of immerse myself back into it whenever I want to. And the cover is so nice. It's such a nice painting. Yeah, so I love an exhibition text. That is, or an exhibition publication. Maybe I'm using the wrong term for it, but yeah, it's really incredible. And I think I paid $60 for this. These aren't cheap. That's another reason I'm like, I gotta stop. But I'm just addicted to them, and they're nice. They're nice coffee table books, or I display them in my apartment. Another one, which is slightly different, and which is another sort of subgenre of art book that I like, is the sort of combination art book. And I say a combination because it's a book that it's not about a single artist. It's not about a single idea. It's more so a collection of essays. So this book really inspires me when I'm thinking about the book that I want to write, because this is a collection of essays, all by Bell Hooks, that all have to do with her own personal relationship with art. And I didn't know she was really interested in art. So I was really surprised to find out about this book, Art on My Mind, Visual Politics, because it's just her talking about art with other artists. She has an interview with Carrie Mae Weems, It's talking about her own personal observations on art. There's an essay talking about beauty and how it could be subversive. There's a book about writing about Black art. Sorry, not a book, an essay, but it's all just a collection. It's just a collection of all different essays that are under the umbrella of art, but it's not pinned down to one thing. And it's written so beautifully and personably, and it doesn't have the jargon. It doesn't have that art speak that's really alienating. It's just a woman talking about her own relationship to art. So honestly, I wouldn't want to like copy what's happening here, but this book really, really inspires me as I'm thinking about my own essay collection. Another one, and this is an exhibition text as well, or exhibition publication, Kerry James Marshall, and he's my favorite artist, and it's called History of Painting. It's right here. And this show was absolutely phenomenal. I saw it at David's Warner. I used to work there, oh my God, in 2018 in London. And he was there at the exhibition, but I was so shy. I was too shy to introduce myself. I always tell myself, though, if I were to meet him again, I would introduce myself. But this book is incredible because it has all the images from the exhibition. And as you can see from the title, the exhibition talks about the history of art, the history of painting. And each work in the exhibition is exploring a different era or style of painting. So he has an abstract work. He has work that is more to do with landscape. He has work that discusses the art market. So it's very sort of meta. A lot of the work talks about art in a very conceptual way. And this is the abstract work, which really surprised me because he's normally a figurative painter. Yeah, this is just a really, really great exhibition text. And there's some really great essays in it. So I love this one in particular because this wasn't a huge exhibition like the Harlem Renaissance show. It was just a show at a gallery. So it's not as big, but the essays in this book are incredible. And it's always a treat to have, a book, by an artist that you really, really respect and love. And I love how the essayist or the writer in this book, they're not like art writers. They're more so like cultural critiques. Like someone like, I think, is it Teju Cole that wrote an essay? So he's more of a novelist. So I love how it feels very interdisciplinary. It's not just like art historian talking about art. It's, cultural critic talking about art. It's very good. It's honestly, if I were to ever have like an exhibition text or exhibition publication, this vibe is excellent. This is what I would go for. And the final subgenre of art book that I love is the sort of art theory collection or art theory adjacent art book. So this is a series of essays that is called Documents of Contemporary Art. So this is a book series where each book has a theme. In this case, this theme is the sublime. And within each book, there are essays or excerpts of texts that are by a variety of different artists, cultural critics, authors, philosophers, actors, like all sorts of people throughout history that all touch on this theme within their essays. So usually each book is sort of curated by someone or someone finds these essays and compiles them. And yeah, there's also direct, from the artist. You have texts that artists have written. You have, people that are more so writers, that are more so theorists that contribute to, talking about this topic. So yeah, I'll just read what they say about the series. So the Documents of Contemporary Art series, it documents major themes and ideas in contemporary art. So like I said, this is the Sublime book. I have like 5 or 6 of these books. So there's a compilation of essays about painting. There's one about color. There's one about abstraction. There's one about the object. That's the one I want. That's the one I hope to find today. There's one called practice. There's one called nature. There's one called beauty. There's one called death. There's one called speculation. So literally anything you could think about, there is a book in this series that talks about it. And what I love about it is that you could, if you wanted to, like sit down and read all the essays. And some are very short, like some are only 1 page and some are longer. But what I do typically is I just find the ones that are interesting to me and I just read those. And Sometimes I'll find some that make the most sense, that makes sense to read, and I sort of think, oh, maybe I should read this one. But I always tell my students when I recommend this series, yeah, just find what interests you. And I think that's the thing about art, and what kind of makes it difficult for some people to get into is that I think we're told to like, you have to like this painting, like you have to like Mona Lisa, you have to like Basquiat's work, you have to like these very canonical traditional painters, and if you don't like that, then you don't have taste. But my thing about art and what I tell students is you have to find out what you like. Like, I personally don't really like Mona Lisa. A lot of people don't. I think we're just told to like it. If you gravitate towards what you love and what interests you, then it'll have more longevity. You'll be more invested in what you're making, and you'll find that you actually really like art. Because I think people that say they don't like art, I think they just haven't found the art that they like. And they also have been, I don't know, we've all been, force-fed certain styles of art and forced to love art that we actually don't like. So don't be afraid to say if you don't like something, because taste is really personal. And yeah, that's why I brought out these books, because I think this is my sweet spot. Like, this is my taste. And this is only a small selection of my art books, but these are the ones that if there was a fire, I would run back in the house and get them. And yeah, hopefully I find something really similar to this sort of style of art writing in the shop. And yeah, I'll get back to you after I come back, and hopefully show you some books that resonated with me and books that will help me as I continue on my writing journey, as I write my first book, which is a compilation of essays. So maybe it's an essay collection, but I'll just call it a book. But anyway, I'll talk to you after. Bye. Hey, so I'm back from the art bookstore, but it's the next day. I was too tired after to film the review, but I'm ready to do it now. And yeah, I got some really cool books. But before I talk about them, I'll just talk about the experience. So I don't know, I was kind of expecting like a sort of younger vibe or more of a contemporary vibe in the bookstore, but it definitely was catering to more of the sort of, to me, what felt like a posh clientele. And it wasn't a bad bookstore. They had a lot of really interesting books, but it was very stuffy. Like when I walked in, it was like dead silent. It was like a library. I felt bad for, my steps making noise in the shop. And then I asked them a question because I was looking for a certain book. And they looked at me like I had two heads. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm sorry. Like, can I have some help? They were nice in the end, but even when I asked about the book I was looking for, they were like, oh, that book's quite cheap. We don't know if we'll have that here. And I'm like, okay, like, one thing about British people, especially as an American, they tend to be very, not all, but there's a certain subset, posh people, as I've come to know, that they just have the biggest sticks up their asses. And it's so weird to me because I just see it as like, from an outsider's perspective, I just find it so odd, but whatever. Anyway, not saying they were rude, not saying it was a bad experience. It's just a cultural difference. But yeah, so it was definitely catering to like an older, what felt like a more posh crowd. And a lot of the books were monographs. So a lot of them were mostly dedicated to one artist, which is fine, but that's just not what I was really looking for. So maybe that's my fault for not going to an art bookstore that didn't cater to that type of art book. They did have a small selection of more like general art theory books, but it was very small. So But even though I didn't find exactly what I was looking for, it was still a cool experience. And I found that a lot of the books were really well priced. Like as I'll show you, I got one really cool book for £2. So I think a lot of the books are secondhand books and more like a sort of thrifted book vibe. That's what I got from the store. It wasn't like a Waterstones where you buy new books. It was like a store where it's books that have been previously owned by other people. And for that reason, they're very affordable. So if you're someone or a student that wants to collect art books and just create a really nice bookshelf in your apartment or your studio, I recommend going there because you can pick up a lot of books for very cheap and they're pretty high quality. So don't knock it until you try it. It was just a different thing than what I was expecting. But I hope to go and look at other art bookstores in London. I know there's a couple other ones. There's one in East London, I think, and see what those vibes are like. So I'm sure every art bookstore is just a bit different. But anyway, let me get into the books that I got. I did not stick to 2 books. I got 5 books. So I bought 2 books from the art bookstore. These 2. And I'll get into it. And then I got, I got 3 books from the art bookstore. I got this one too. And then I got 2 books from across the road. Well, not even a road, but really close by. It was the Tate Modern's bookstore. So I went to there and got 2 books. So yeah, I'll just talk about each one and why I got it. So this one, I didn't even think, I just grabbed it because I got this one from the first bookstore I went to. It was £2. I love Luke Toymans. He's a really great figurative painter. And this is another Whitechapel Gallery series that I've heard about, but I've never actually purchased a book from the series. And it's called On and By. So it has to do with a single artist. So it's writing that artist has done about their work and other people's work, and also writing that others have done about this artist's work. So that's why it's called On and By. And the reason I snatched it up so quick is because, like I said, I love this artist. But when I did read the back of it, there is a portion of it where it includes a dialogue that he's had with Kerry James Marshall, which is my favorite artist. So I'm like, oh my God, a conversation between these two will go crazy. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And yeah, looking forward to checking that out and seeing what other artists are in this series, because I think it sounds like a really interesting one. So that's the first book I got for £2. And then I got this book from the art bookstore, but it's Keith Piper, a monograph of Keith Piper. I'm not sure if it includes, all of his work. I'm not sure if you can call it a monograph. Maybe it's just a book of his work, but he's someone that I've met before through an exhibition I was in, and he actually really was helpful to me when I needed a letter of recommendation for my global talent visa. So I was like, let me support this man, buy his book. And also, of course, I'm aware of his work and his practice, but I just want to know more about it and know more about what influenced him and what inspired him, and see a lot of pictures of his work, because the reproductions of the work seem to be really, really good. And I wasn't aware of a lot of it. So I know quite a bit of it, but like the earlier work from like the 90s, the 80s before I was born. I'm really curious about that. And just thinking about Black British artists and that history and that lineage, living here, I think that's something that I should be always aware of. And it's also a really beautiful cover. I thought that was a really great selection for the cover image. And I was happy to see this book very prominently displayed in the shop. It was all over the shop, and quickly grabbed this one too. I think it was £10. I'm pretty sure it was, but I took off the price tag. But I'm looking forward to reading this and taking a look at it. So happy to add this to my art book collection. And then the last book I got from that store, I don't know, it just seemed really interesting. It's called Painter's Paintings, and it talks about artists who have other artists that they collect. And it focuses specifically on painters. So each painter that's represented in the book has their own section. And then it talks about some of the artists that have collected their work, some of the fellow artists that have been patrons for them and supported them. So it's funny, I actually saw this Degas painting at the National Gallery a few days ago. So I was like, oh, let me read about this painting. I just saw it and I really loved it. So then I learned, through paging through the book that apparently Henri Matisse was one of Degas' fans and collectors. So it just talks about the relationships that artists have with each other and how we support each other through collecting each other's work. And that's also a phrase that's used a lot in art circles, art school, or wherever. It's just this notion of being a painter's painter, being a painter that other painters love because they appreciate all the work that goes into it and the complexity in the work. In the same way that musicians might support each other or, athletes might support each other, it's just like that mutual admiration. Yeah, maybe I'm not explaining it as well as I want to, but basically a painter that other painters love, which is the biggest compliment because if a painter likes this painting, I know I'm doing something right. But anyway, I'm looking forward to paging through this as well. Anyway, this book I'm really excited about. I think this one was £2 as well, which is crazy. So like I said, after I went to the art bookstore, I ended up going across the way to Tate Modern. And I know they have a really good bookstore. And I was specifically looking for one of the documents of contemporary art books, but I didn't find it. But I ended up finding two really good books that I've actually been meaning to read, especially in relation to the research that I'm doing. When I was actually sitting down and sort of mapping out the research, these two books came up as books that I should read, and I'm so happy I found these. So these are both by Linda Nochlin, and she passed away, unfortunately. She was an American art historian who wrote extensively about the female figure, the female body, female representation in art history. So actually, when I bought this book, I actually sat and read it in one sitting. This one's called On the Body. It's so good. And it's not really a book. It's more so an essay that's been, turned into a book. But I could write up or make a whole video about this book because it just talks about how the body being fragmented is one of the hallmarks of contemporary art. And the fragmentation of the body speaks to or about the state of fragmentation that we experience in modern life, like being, dissociated from our bodies, having to separate work and family. It's just like the separation that we experience in our bodies and our minds and our lives is represented in contemporary art as well, where you see artists, for example, like Picasso, using a cubist method to create all these fractures within the body when he paints it. And then she did a sort of literal examination of some paintings that showed severed heads and talked about how that as well was a symbol of modernity and related to the guillotine and during the French Revolution. Yeah, that's another one I could keep talking about. But basically, this is a book about severed heads and severed bodies, but then it more specifically goes into women's bodies and how those have been fragmented and separated. And I thought that really related to what I want to do with my book, because I'm talking about, let me get it. I'm talking about these ladies, mannequin heads. So as I was reading the book, I was thinking, oh my God, these are actually severed heads. But I never really saw them as grotesque. I just saw them as like functional, maybe even decorative or beautiful. So now I'm thinking about these as something more grotesque. And anyway, just thinking about this lady. And then the last book I got, also by Linda Nochlin. So this is more so a compilation of essays that she's written on the subject of the women's body in art. She's more of like a feminist art historian, which I find really interesting. So yeah, this is one I haven't started. Like I started this one and finished this one already. But I saw a few essays in here that I thought really related well to the subjects I want to talk about in my book. So what else? Where's the index of essays? Yeah, I think there's an essay in here that talks about working women, And that could be like, you know, sex worker women, maids, and how that has been represented in art. One thing I did notice though, as I was paging through this, was a painting that I thought really could relate to what I want to talk about, and that's Manet's Olympia painting. It's, I don't know, I'll include a little photo of it, but it's one of those works that is, you know, really important and discussed within art, in art history. It's an image of a white woman reclining. She's implied to be a prostitute, and there's this black woman behind her carrying a bouquet of flowers. And it's interesting because the black woman, like, no one talks about that. All the focus goes on to the white woman that's sitting. So I want to go into, you know, the different ways black and white women have been represented in painting, and how both have been objectified, but I think black women have been more profoundly objectified and seen as subhuman. And that's another thing that relates to the mannequin and the figures that I'm drawing and painting and sculpting. You know, what does it mean to represent something that is an object but also a person? When does a person become an object? When does an object become a person? So anyway, yeah, so I'm happy to buy these books. I'm happy that I found them, and I think they'll really help me on my journey. But yeah, so I didn't find, with the exception of these two, I didn't necessarily find exactly what I was looking for, but I really found some things that I think will look great on my bookshelf, but also expand my mind, because that's one thing, I guess because I'm an art teacher, I have to always be researching and learning new things about art. It's not enough just to paint or just to draw. You have to know why you're doing it, and know where you sit in the history of painting and the history of art. So anyway, that's my art book haul. I will give myself a few months before I buy something new because I can't do this anymore. I have too many art books, but definitely want to do another video at some point talking about some of my other books, and if I do acquire more, you know, if I break the rules, I can talk about that too. I can talk about those books. But yeah, get art books. I think they're great ways to sort of appreciate art without, I don't know, and go at your own pace. You know, you don't have to read the whole book. You can just read what's interesting to you. Look at the pictures. You don't even have to read, just look at the pictures. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, see you later.